Oh man, I got a minute before my next phone call for work, so I'm gonna record a quick video because, let me just say this. I love the internet. There's a lot of reasons why I love the internet, but crowdsourcing information or crowdsourcing opinions on the internet is very helpful a lot of the time. I know a lot of people think that there's a lot of negativity and stuff like that on the internet, and of course there is some of that, but you just gotta learn how to block some of that stuff out, and if you do that effectively, you can learn a lot from the internet. I put out my video earlier today about Aimee Byrd and Denny Burke, and how is it that Denny Burke is going so hard on Aimee Byrd's book? Because you would think, I thought that Aimee Byrd was in the guild. I thought she was one of the made guys, or gals, I guess. I thought she was one of those made gals, and so to see an article that was so good, I mean, I'm not joking, that Denny Burke article was so good. It's a blueprint for how people should be going hard against this race-based social justice stuff instead of just the feminist-based social stuff. So I was thinking that Aimee Byrd must have fallen out of favor with the guild, and I think that there still might be some truth to that, but I'll explain what I mean in a minute. But a lot of people had a lot of other opinions as far as why Denny Burke was able to write this article, because an article like this, I wonder if it had to get the go-ahead from somebody. Like did Denny Burke have to call up Al Mohler and say, "Hey Al, listen. Hey, Godfather, listen. I cannot. This kind of disrespect cannot stand. Can I write this article?" And the Godfather approved it. He said, "Okay, but one day I will come to you with a request, and you must not refuse." I could just see it. My impressions are terrible, but I wonder if someone had to give him the go-ahead for an article like this, because it's so out of character for Big Eva. But anyway, here's a few other opinions as far as why this happened. Oh, by the way, here's a update picture for my chickens. This is what my chickens look like now. They're getting full grown, man. They're doing great. But anyway, we'll do an update video on my chickens soon. All right. So this is what this person says. He says that Matt Hall didn't write a book directly attacking the organization that Denny is president of. And this is a good point. I didn't consider this because Denny is, he's the Council on Biblical Manhood and Womanhood guy. And so Aimee's book is a direct refutation of the Council of Biblical Manhood and Womanhood thing. So this could be like, okay, so Aimee did a direct assault, and so now I'm allowed to do a direct assault on her book. That could very well be at play. I think that's a very good point, because the social justice stuff, there is no like anti-social justice council or anything like that. So it's a little bit uneven for me to make the comparison. So Aimee Byrd she upset the apple cart. It's almost like she went against the guild on her own. And so, okay, so you're turning your back on the guild turns your back on you, kind of thing. I think there's a lot of truth to that, I think. That's a good point. Here's another point that I thought was interesting. This guy says, Matt Hall is in the Southern Baptist Convention, and Byrd is Presbyterian. Aimee Byrd's Presbyterian. And so the 11th commandment doesn't protect Aimee Byrd. Do you see Burke going after Beth Moore? And this is another great point, because Beth Moore is another one of these feminists, and Burke isn't going after Beth Moore's tweets or Beth Moore's, speeches or articles or whatever, or sermons, because she does preach sermons. And so the 11th commandment only applies to Southern Baptists. That's another good point, because Aimee Byrd is a Presbyterian, but I was working under the assumption that like Presbyterians and Southern Baptists have kind of a memorandum of understanding between the two, especially if you're in the guild, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like that's actually an interesting point. Maybe she's never been in the guild because she's not Southern Baptist. I'm not sure. I don't think that's the case, but it's a good point, because Denny Burke isn't going after Beth Moore, isn't saying Beth Moore is a functional egalitarian. Or maybe he is. I don't know. If someone could point me to when Denny Burke said that, that'd be very interesting. But again, Beth Moore didn't write a direct assault on his organization, which is an interesting point. I think Eric here is onto something there. Here's another point that I thought was good. This guy's pretty much saying what I said. He said Matt Hall's a made guy. I agree. Matt Hall's a made guy. He's Al's right-hand man. He's his consigliere, you know what I mean? And Aimee is not a made guy or gal. And then here's what he says as well. So he makes my point about the guild, but then he also says this. I think there's a lot of truth to this as well. He says, also, different organizations treat the various boxcars of social justice differently. The SBC is terrified of being called racist, but they don't care so much about being called homophobic, and they're kind of in the middle squish about being called sexist. And this is very true. I've noticed this trend as well. Conjunction here, he's an Anon. He's very right, because the SBC is all about the race thing. If you've noticed, they'll talk about some of the sexist stuff, and they'll talk about some people will talk about the homosexual stuff. But in general, it's all focused on racism. But the PCA is very different. You see, the PCA is all about this homophobic stuff and the gay Christianity stuff and things like that. And I would also argue that they're also big on this sexism stuff as well. So I think he's right. Like, the focus for the SBC is very different. The Southern Baptist Convention really wants, they really ought to call themselves the Baptist Convention, because using the word Southern is actually a monument to white supremacy and slavery. So I don't think it's very long before they just call themselves the Baptist Convention. But anyway, that's another good point. This is why I love the internet. You can crowdsource this stuff and you get a lot of information. This guy says, Joe, he says, I think it's the same reason that many rose up guns ablazing against open theism, citing an existential threat to the gospel, but we get crickets about the same guys against social justice. Fighting open theism costs nothing in the world. Fighting social justice can cost everything. And I think this is kind of true as well. To a certain degree, you don't really want to cross the feminists like that bad. So it's not exactly an equivalent, because open theism, nobody really cares about it outside of Christianity. But feminism, if you cross the wrong feminist, your life, they'll try to make your life a living hell. At least they'll attempt to. By the way, Michael Foster's been tweeting about how he's survived cancel culture, and you can too. You can. They just want to make you think you can't survive it. You can survive being canceled, and I think it's worth it to try. Anyway, but he's right though. Like, in Christian circles, fighting feminism openly, it's not the greatest thing for you to do. You'll get some grief for it, but it's not the same as social justice. You fight social justice and the truck runs over you. You fight feminism and that has an air of legitimacy towards it. I'm still confused as to why he went so hard on Aimee Byrd, because he went hard. I think that article by Denny Burke is really good. And so it's just very interesting that he was able to go hard on that when that's really not characteristic of Big Eva in general. Let's see. Oh, here's this. I thought this one was funny too. He says, Unsafe Space says, that face he makes after the "I'm a racist" comment reminds me of Michael Scott. So much about this is Michael Scott. Has All America become an awkward Office episode featuring racial sensitivity training? The answer to that question is definitely yes. Yeah, there's so much cringe out there in Christianity, in Big Eva, in the regular world. Like, it's just, everyone has become Michael Scott. Like, this is what he's talking about. Like,
I am a racist.
Mm-hmm. I am a racist. He knows what he's saying is so stupid. He knows, but he's saying it because he wants to show you that he's colorblind. But yeah, this Matt Hall is definitely a made guy, and Aimee Byrd, I guess maybe either she never was or she has decided to turn her back. Never turn your back on the family. I don't even remember what he says. But yeah. I'm such an idiot. Anyway, but yeah, that's the thing, man. I really think maybe it is that she just decided to leave the guild, and she's going off into progressive la la land, I'm sure. But she decided to leave the guild, and so now the guild has turned their back on Aimee. But I still think we should fight for justice for Aimee Byrd. First, she was unceremoniously booted from the Mortification of Spin podcast. You see, listen. That was a ridiculous situation. If things went down the way Aimee said they did, which I'm not necessarily going to say that they did, but if they did and she just one day lost her credentials and then no one ever said anything to her, like, that's pretty jacked up, man. And if it didn't go down that way, I'd like to hear how it did go down. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say today. Thank you so much for your thoughts on this. I think everyone had some really interesting thoughts. I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.